Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a leadership approach that's, well, less about top-down command and more about lifting up your team.
Servant leadership.
Exactly, servant leadership. We've got Larry W. Boone's book, Servant Leadership, Attitudes, Skills, and Behaviors, as our main guide here. And it's interesting, this isn't some, flash-in-the-pan management trend.
Not at all.
The term was actually coined by Robert Greenleaf way back in 1970. So it's got some real history behind it.
That's right. And what Boone does so well is break this philosophy into three core components: attitudes, skills, and behaviors.
The three-legged stool idea.
Yeah, he likens it to a three-legged stool. Each leg, attitude, skill, behavior, is crucial. They all support each other.
Makes sense.
You might have the best intentions, the right attitude, let's say, but without the necessary skills or the consistent behaviors to back it up.
It falls flat.
Exactly. Those intentions won't really translate into meaningful results for your team.
Okay, so our mission in this deep dive then is to really extract the essential elements of servant leadership. We'll focus on attitudes and skills for this part.
Sounds good.
And try to do it in a way that's not just informative, but genuinely insightful for you, the listener. Go beyond the surface level.
Get into what these concepts truly mean in practice.
Right. So let's dive into that first leg of the stool, the attitudes.
Okay. The first attitude Boone really emphasizes is this fundamental shift in mindset. It's about consistently thinking and saying we instead of I.
Seems simple. Almost obvious, maybe.
It does sound simple, but the impact can be pretty profound. It's moving away from a self-centered view
Right.
to a genuine sense of shared ownership, collective responsibility.
It's that subtle shift in language that signals something much bigger, isn't it?
Definitely.
Instead of talking about my department or my achievements.
It becomes our team, our
Right.
progress.
Yeah. And Boone offers some really practical servant leader tips for this. Things like actively using that team-oriented language, in emails and meetings.
Everywhere.
And making sure credit for successes gets shared widely among the team.
And crucially, being the first to take personal responsibility when things go wrong, not pointing fingers.
That's a big one. And this attitude, it has to be more than just, lip service, right?
Oh, absolutely. Boone really stresses that those organizational value statements, the ones often on the wall.
Cooperation, customer focus,
Yeah.
fairness, all that.
Yeah, innovation, teamwork, they can't just be decorative posters.
Right.
They need to be deeply ingrained, part of the daily operations, part of decision-making.
How often do you actually see that happen, though, where values actively shape choices?
That's the challenge. That's the critical point Boone makes.
So he gives tips for making them real.
He does. He suggests having a focus set, maybe 4 to 6 core values,
Good.
defining each one clearly, concisely, prioritizing them so everyone knows what's most important.
And then communicating them constantly.
Constantly. Through all channels, promotional stuff, PR, internal comms.
Are they built into hiring? Performance reviews?
They should be, according to Boone. And he also mentions something powerful: telling stories.
Storytelling.
Yeah, stories that actually illustrate these values in action, that makes them stick, makes them relatable.
Turns abstract ideas into something tangible.
Okay.
So what's the next attitude?
The next one centers on vision. Boone puts it starkly. Vision is everything, but it's the beginning of everything.
Beginning of everything. What's the idea there?
It's about articulating a compelling picture of the future, something that doesn't just inspire, but actually serves as a guide, a North Star for the whole team.
Guiding efforts, decisions.
Exactly. It's not just about hitting quarterly numbers. It's about painting a picture of a better future that resonates, that aligns with those core values we just talked about.
And what struck me was the range of formats Boone suggests a vision can take. It's not always a massive document.
Right. It could be a concise 5-minute speech.
Or a letter, a paragraph.
Even a 30-second elevator pitch. Or a slogan, like a bumper sticker.
Or just a single powerful word.
Yeah. And he shares some great examples of vision slogan.
Like the Smithsonian.
Right. Shaping the future by preserving heritage. Or Disney's making people happy. Very simple, very evocative.
They're concise, they connect emotionally, they stick with you.
That's what makes them effective, I think. They capture the essence.
So how do you craft that kind of vision? What are the tips?
Well, Boone emphasizes a collaborative approach. It's about asking people about their hopes, their dreams.
Really listening.
Really investing time in listening to different perspectives. And then weaving those common themes, those shared aspirations, into the vision.
Creating a shared sense of purpose. Something everyone feels connected to.
Exactly.
Okay. What's next on the attitude list?
The next one is everyone is good at something.
I like that one.
Me too. It really highlights a core idea of servant leadership, this belief in the inherent value and potential within every single person on the team.
It's looking beyond just the job description, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Recognizing that each person brings unique talents, unique experiences.
And the servant leader's role then becomes by identifying that, nurturing it.
Both. Identifying and actively nurturing those individual strengths.
No.
Boone suggests viewing every interaction, every encounter, as a chance to spot someone's hidden talent or untapped potential.
Okay.
And then taking ownership, it's the leader's job to connect those strengths to the bigger picture, the organization's goals.
And communicating that connection back to the person.
Clearly communicating it. And then, crucially, being a facilitator. Removing obstacles.
Removing obstacles. That's key, isn't it?
It really is. It shows a real commitment to empowering people, creating an environment where they can actually use their talents and thrive.
Right. Which leads nicely into the next attitude Boone discusses. I am committed to your success.
Yes, this really underscores that supportive, developmental role.
Being genuinely invested in the growth and progress of your followers.
Exactly. Boone includes those great sayings.
It takes a leader to raise up a leader.
That's one. And it takes one to know one, show one, and grow one.
They really capture that essence of leadership as mentorship, right? Ongoing development.
They do. And the servant leader tips here are very concrete.
Like what?
Like seeing yourself as playing a meaningful, supportive role in your team members' careers.
Okay.
Actively creating opportunities for them to develop through training, challenging assignments.
Getting them out of their comfort zone a bit.
Maybe. And that practical advice, regularly walk the shop and help people do things right.
Be visible, be engaged, not just an absentee manager.
Right. And he also emphasizes demonstrating trust, using that shared vision and those shared values as the framework for behavior rather than rigid rules.
Trust is fundamental here, it seems.
Absolutely. And the next attitude builds right on that. It's useful to give my power away.
Okay, this one might feel a bit radical to some.
It can, definitely. Servant leaders consciously choose to share power, share authority, empowering their teams instead of hoarding control.
It's a departure from traditional hierarchy.
A significant one. It's about shifting away from relying just on formal authority.
Your title, ability to reward or punish.
Exactly. Or even just personal power like charisma or expertise. You deliberately distribute influence.
And Boone describes that upside-down organizational structure that results from this.
Yeah, that's a fascinating concept. In that model, the people actually serving the organization's purpose, customers, clients, students, patients,
Who are they?
they're at the very top. And the leadership structure exists primarily to support them, to enable their success.
It flips the pyramids.
Completely.
So how do you actually give power away? What are the tips?
Well, setting the overall direction is still key for the leader, but then it becomes about being an initiator, an educator, a coach,
Okay.
and actively pushing decision-making authority down. Down to the lowest possible competent level.
Does that include things like budgets?
Yeah, giving budget authority where appropriate.
Right.
Delegating meaningful tasks, not just the grunt work.
And trusting them to get it done within the guidelines.
Trusting them. And this is crucial, accepting that they might not do it exactly the way you would.
Letting go of that need for absolute control over the how.
Exactly. That's essential for real delegation, real empowerment.
Requires trust and letting go. Okay, next attitude.
Next up is humility, a really vital aspect of effective leadership. It's captured in the statement, I don't have to be right all the time.
Recognizing good ideas can come from anywhere, right? Regardless of rank.
Precisely. And being comfortable admitting when you've made a mistake.
That vulnerability, it can actually build trust, can't it?
It absolutely can. It fosters respect.
So, Boone's recommendations here.
Pretty straightforward, but incredibly important. Actively listen to others' ideas. Consider them seriously.
Create spaces where people feel safe to speak up.
Yes. Create that psychological safety. And be transparent. Be honest when you get things wrong. No cover-ups.
That's a powerful example. Encourages a learning culture. Okay, this next one feels foundational for any leader, really. Listening is hard work, and it's worth the effort.
So true. It's not passive. It requires real focus, genuine engagement.
Active, empathetic listening. It's the bedrock of good communication, healthy relationships.
Absolutely. Boone uses those quotes, listen first and often.
And listen first, speak last.
Yeah, the priority is always understanding before trying to be understood.
And he gives a pretty comprehensive list of tips for active listening.
He does. Everything from eye contact, positive nonverbal cues,
Nodding, leaning in slightly,
to asking clarifying questions, paraphrasing to check understanding.
and that tough one, consciously reserving judgment, suspending your own biases.
That is tough for many people. And he goes further, suggesting you actively seek out areas of emerging agreement, consensus.
Be fully present.
Be fully present. Ask open-ended questions. Aim for that 2.1 ratio. Listen twice as much as you speak, especially when giving instructions.
Wow. Really shows listening is an active investment. Time, energy,
A valuable one.
which flows naturally into the next attitude. Feedback is a gift.
Right. Actively embracing feedback, positive and constructive, as a chance for growth.
Demonstrates that commitment to continuous improvement.
Uh-huh.
Humility again.
Yes. And Boone includes Fred Nichols's guidelines for receiving feedback effectively. They're really practical.
What do they cover?
Things like being open, just listening without interrupting, being responsive, asking questions to understand better,
Thoughtful.
being thoughtful, seeking to understand the effects of your actions, staying calm.
Not getting defensive immediately. That's key.
So key. Also, being explicit about what feedback you're seeking, being quiet while listening, stating how you'll use the feedback, assuming good intentions.
And clarifying to make sure you understood correctly.
Right. That immediate urge to explain or justify.
Yeah, to resist that.
That's where the learning happens, when you truly absorb it.
So Boone's tips reinforce this.
Yeah. Regularly ask for feedback on your leadership. Apply those guidelines. Accept it gracefully, with a smile even.
And resist the urge to defend yourself. Exactly.
Okay, the final attitude.
The last one in this section is, I am a community builder.
So leadership isn't solitary.
Not at all. It's fundamentally about fostering a strong sense of community, built on those shared values and that common vision we talked about.
He mentions Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership here, too.
He does, yeah. It illustrates how effective leaders build deeper relationships and influence over time, moving from just potential to proven value, mutual respect.
It's an ongoing process, cultivating connections.
Right. And Boone's tips for community building emphasize that collaboration. Recognizing leadership is a team sport.
Getting the right people on the bus, as Collins would say.
Getting the right people, then nurturing that community around the shared values and vision. Acting on the conviction that strong communities form around people passionate about the vision.
Helping people see how their work fits the bigger picture.
Yes. Encouraging healthy conflict resolution, too. And creating opportunities to celebrate successes together. Reinforce those values. Okay, so those are the foundational servant leadership attitudes, according to Boone. Quite a shift in perspective.
It really is. Focus on service, empowerment, not just authority.
Right. Now let's transition to that second leg of the stool, skills. Boone argues these aren't inherent like attitudes. They can be developed, practiced, refined.
Exactly. And the first skill he highlights is knowing and sharing personal values.
Building on the organizational values idea.
Right. This is about the leader's own deep understanding of their core principles and being open about them. Transparent.
He references Milton Rokeach's work on values.
Yes, on how values shape our behavior and decisions.
And he lists examples of personal values.
A really comprehensive list that accountability, ambition, compassion, fairness, honesty, humility, loyalty, wisdom, lots of them.
Makes you think about your own non-negotiables.
It really does. And Boone offers some actionable tips for developing this skill.
Like writing a personal credo.
Yeah, a clear statement of your core values. And even writing a tribute to yourself as your ideal leader.
Interesting exercise.
Can be powerful for clarifying what you stand for. He also suggests studying leaders you admire and identifying the values they embody.
Okay. Next skill. Seems obvious given the attitudes.
Listening, naturally. It builds directly on the attitude. It's not just being willing to listen, it's developing the ability to do it effectively, actively, empathetically.
In all sorts of situations.
Right. He reiterates it's fundamental for trust, for understanding, in work, outside work, everywhere. He mentions James Hunter's advice on listening's value.
And the tips here are basically a reinforcement.
A helpful reinforcement and expansion, yeah. Keep emphasizing eye contact, affirmative nods, minimizing distractions, asking those clarifying questions.
Paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing. And that crucial goal, listen to understand, not just to reply.
Got it. So after listening comes.
Communicating. Absolutely vital skill for any leader, but especially a servant leader conveying vision, values, expectations.
Both formal and informal communication.
Both are important, and within communication, he specifically highlights asking questions.
Especially open-ended ones.
Yes, questions that encourage real dialogue, deeper understanding. He gives great examples.
Like, what are your biggest challenges?
Or, if you had unlimited resources, what would you change? Things that invite thoughtful responses, show you value their input.
Shows genuine interest. So the tips for asking questions.
Use them strategically to show you're listening. Solicit diverse opinions, explore what-ifs, drive process improvement, build trust.
Even making sure meeting agendas are relevant.
Exactly, addressing the team's actual needs.
He also gets into the power of telling stories as a communication skill.
Yes, this really resonated with me too. Stories can convey values, create understanding, inspire action in ways data often can't.
True.
Boone uses Noel Tichy's framework. 3 types of stories.
Who I am.
Right. Reveals your personal values, motivations. Then, who we are, stories fostering collective identity, shared purpose.
And future or vision stories.
Exactly. Painting that compelling picture of where you're going, inspiring commitment.
And the tips for storytelling. Be intentional.
Be intentional, purposeful. Use stories to educate, define the culture, celebrate heroes who embody values, actively collect stories.
Master all 3 types.
Master the 3 types, and even put storytelling on meeting agendas to reinforce messages, build connection.
Okay. Another communication skill.
Being optimistic.
Yeah.
Cultivating that focus on hope, a positive outlook. It's incredibly motivating, especially during tough times.
Using positive language. Focusing on solutions, not just problems.
Yes. Consistently expressing confidence in the team's abilities. His tips include avoiding negative environments, celebrating strength.
Finding the positive in difficult situations.
Trying to, yeah. And it starts internally, right? Attending to your own emotional well-being, reading inspirational stuff, staying free from negativity.
Internal resilience fuels external optimism. Makes sense.
He also revisits saying we as a skill.
The practical application of the attitude.
Exactly, in your everyday language. He references Saipi and Frick's work here, the puts people first pillar, showing a servant's heart.
Consistently reinforcing that shared effort through words.
Consciously, consistently using inclusive language. Shared ownership of success and challenges. Builds collective identity.
Okay. What else under communication skills?
The skill of stimulating informal conversations.
The water cooler chats. But intentional.
Sort of, intentionally creating opportunities for those spontaneous interactions. Building relationships, fostering open communication outside formal meetings.
You mentioned third places.
Yeah, social environments beyond home and work where interaction happens naturally.
So the tips are about creating those spaces or moments.
Pretty much. Designing workspaces to encourage encounters, holding celebrations in neutral, relaxed spaces, brief stand-up meetings in informal areas.
You be providing free lunch or snacks sometimes, pop-up style.
That kind of thing. Small gestures that boost team cohesion and communication.
And finally, he briefly touches on visioning as a skill.
Right. Acknowledging that while the mindset is an attitude, clearly articulating and communicating that vision compellingly, that's a skill.
Got it. So those are the core skills Boone outlines. You can really see how they support and reinforce the attitudes.
They're definitely intertwined.
Okay, so as we bring this part of our deep dive into servant leadership to a close, we've really unpacked some fundamental concepts here.
A lot to think about.
And remember, at its core, servant leadership is all about prioritizing the growth, well-being, empowerment of your team members.
It's not passive, though. It's active service, empathy, commitment to others' success.
Exactly. And as we've discussed, these attitudes and skills, they're deeply interconnected, right? Mutually reinforcing.
You really can't have one without the other functioning effectively. You can't be committed to success without listening well, for example.
That's a whole approach.
Yeah.
Mindset plus abilities.
A holistic approach.
Definitely comprehensive. So for you, our listener, maybe a final thought to chew on. Consider how adopting even just one of these attitudes or consciously working on just one of these skills, how that could start to shift your own approach.
Your impact on others, regardless of your role.
Right. Which specific parts of this resonated most with you? And maybe what's one small, intentional step you could take this week to explore it further in your own life, your own work?
It is certainly a lot to reflect on.
It is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.